2003, when President Kibaki took over, the debt in Kenya was 600 billion Kenya shillings. 600 billion Kenya shillings when President Kibaki took over. By the time he left, it was around 1.8 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, President Kibaki borrowed roughly, because there are some decimal points, around 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings for the entire 10 years he was president. And therefore, he was borrowing around 120 billion it's actually 100 billion every year. When President Uhuru Kenyatta took over, the debt was 1.8 trillion. In 2022, the public debt in Kenya was 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, he borrowed around, we can say 7 trillion. So in every year, he was borrowing roughly 700 billion shillings. There is a reason I'm giving these figures. The current administration, when it took over, the debt was 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings. Now, as we talk with you today, the legal debts, because there are others which I'll talk about, the legal debt is 12.5 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, in that span of less than 3 years, Kenya has borrowed 3.8 trillion Kenya shillings. And therefore, Kenya is borrowing 1.25 trillion Kenya shillings every year. And therefore, the money Kibaki borrowed in 10 years, we are borrowing every year. And therefore, every day, we are borrowing 3.5 billion shillings every day. So this conference will be here for a week. So by the time you go back to Nairobi, you can do the calculations. That is the legal debt. Those who follow politics of Africa, you must have followed the politics of Senegal last year, where two gentlemen, that is Diomaye Faye and Osman Sonko, they are currently the president and the prime minister respectively, were actually had been locked in by government then. They campaigned for only 10 days and won. Only 10 days. Because people were fed up that time. Upon assuming office in Senegal last year, they realized that the government of President Macky Sall in Senegal had borrowed between 7 to 13 billion US dollars of the book. What is of the book? There is a register the DG, the National Treasury, is referring to. That is the one when you go to the Central Bank of Kenya and all the government data, you'll get to see how much is the debt in Kenya. That was the same book they thought was legitimate in Senegal then. Upon assuming office, they realized there were some debts baptized in other names. You can call it securitization, you can call it revenue-backed board, you can call it asset-backed board. In Kenya, they have names. One is called securitization of road maintenance levy fund. The other one is called Talanta Board. The other one is many others. So they realized there was 13 billion US dollars borrowed off the book. As we talk today, the duo that was very popular in Senegal last year, just wait in the next few months. Actually, issues have already started. Why? Because it is important for a country to maintain one book of debt. And I've been talking about this issue because of the enormity of its importance. Kenya must stop borrowing off the book. Beyond the reported debt of 12.5 trillion, Kenya has already borrowed an illegal debt of 175 billion shillings, where they have gone to the banks, taken a loan of 175 billion, and then they are telling the banks they'll be collecting the fuel levy for the next 7 years. And I'm here wondering, the people in the National Treasury and in government, if you came in to lead and you realize that all the revenue had been securitized, then you'd be elected to do what? So that's one. Second is called Talanta Board. The Talanta Stadium you see, the cost is 45 billion in present value. But it is important for Kenyans to know that Kenya actually took a loan of the book of 45 billion shillings. And do you know what? Now, we'll be servicing that debt using sports fund. Every month, 500 million shillings. In 15 years, a debt of 45 billion shillings, Kenya will pay an interest rate of 100 billion Kenya shillings. And therefore, the cost of the Talanta Stadium in Nairobi, the one you see on Gong Road, is not 45 billion. It is the most expensive stadium in the world. It will be 145 billion in the next 15 years. So I've been requesting the people who are dealing with our debt, no one anakuzuia kukopa, but please let us maintain, as we have done in the past, only one book of debt. And this issue, again, was just discovered in Kenya last year. Actually this year, 2025, since independence, we have never done securitization. We have never done those kind of boards. It is important that when we get a squeeze on the normal borrowing, let us not expose Kenya by opening other secret, illegal books of loans. Policy, the issue of policy. I'm just going top line. As you realize nowadays, the fiscal policy in Kenya has now been hijacked by debt. And this is how. The reasoning of the National Treasury, they are my friends, some are doing their best. The fiscal policy in Kenya currently is only addressing one issue, to the detriment of the others. Why? If you look at both fiscal actuary and monetary policy, if you look at the issue of interest rate, we keep seeing the CBR is coming down. But if you look at the rating to the private sector, it's decimated. It is either stagnant or going down. So to whose interest is the interest rate in Kenya going down? It is basically because of domestic debt service. And that is why you see now the composition of debt in Kenya, and everything has ramifications. Previously, we are 50-50, that is domestic and foreign. But over time, we are now past 60 domestic. Why? Because Kenya does not want to be accountable to the external lenders. And you can see the trend. If IMF asks questions, what is our response as Kenya? We come to crowd out businesses in terms of credit in our banks. So we borrow internally. So in Kenya, the banking sector is making every year a return in terms of growth in profit, but it's not in tandem with the productive sectors of the economy. Because the government is dominant in lending, in borrowing. In the economic classes, we used to be told the work of government is to release money to the economy, either through banks, through fiscal policy. Now we have inverted. Now the work of the government currently is to mop up money from the pockets of the people and from the pockets of the banks to do the public projects. But you're only transferring farm and consumer, farm and individual consumption to public consumption. Sorry, I just said I'll be doing the highlights. If you look at the exchange rate in Kenya, the exchange rate in Kenya is currently misaligned by around 12 to 18%. Misaligned in the favor of the Kenya shillings. Why? Because of the service of external debt. But what is the ramification of that? What is the ramification of having a misaligned currency, a stronger one? If you look at the graph of the Kenya currency, when Kenya was having its best years during President Kibaki's time, the Kenya shillings was actually misaligned to weaken, not to strengthen. Because when you strengthen the local currency, what are you basically doing? You make payment of interest rate cheaper, but you make all our exports less competitive, and number two, you make all the imports very attractive. That is why you see when the Kenya shillings is misaligned just because of debt, then we take a toll on the other sides of the economy, and especially the balance of payment, and in regards to the production side, not just the capital inflow and outflow. Let me, as I come to the conclusion, just say that what I have realized is that whatever PR you play around numbers, numbers will always betray you. If I say 4 plus 4 is 8, and somebody else is saying, no, it can be 9. Whether you paint it in black, in yellow, in red, 4 plus 4 will always be 8. And this is the reason I'm saying that. Beyond the paintings we are doing around how we are managing debt, how we want to do this, and how we've been doing this, numbers and figures always summarize stories. Numbers and figures always summarize narratives.
If you're in need of office partitioning or home interior works, i.e. kitchen cabinets, modern media walls, wall decoration, wainscoting, wardrobes, tiles, bathrooms, window blinds, gypsum and so on, reach out to Suima's Interiors at 07170 443 or info@suimas.co.ke, and they'll get all your needs sorted out. Whatever it may be, all interior works, these guys are the best at it.
Gikomba Pure app. Download today from the App Store and Play Store. Register by creating an account with your username, email, phone number, and add your password of choice. Upload your products and start selling or buying seamlessly. Gikomba Pure app. A new digital market.
Thank you for choosing David Wafula as your primary news platform. We put countless hours in research, recording, and editing. By showing up each and every day to watch our videos, you encourage us to generate more videos for the viewers. We are on a mission to inform, educate, and build a better tomorrow. To our thousands of followers in a world full of presidents, kings, and queens, you are the real gem. Adios.